For 1,500 years, pilgrims came to Jerusalem, were shown a pool, told it was the Pool of Siloam, and went home satisfied. Guidebooks described it, maps marked it, churches were built beside it. Nobody questioned it because nobody knew what was buried 50 meters away, just under the surface. Then, in 2004, a municipal crew arrived to fix a broken sewage pipe. Their shovels broke through into stone steps, ancient ones, wide, carefully carved, descending into a pool that was far larger, far older, and far more significant than anything anyone had been visiting for the past millennium and a half. 1,500 years of pilgrims had been going to the wrong address. 6 words, that is what started all of this. In John chapter 9, Jesus tells a man who has been blind since the day he was born, "Go, wash in the Pool of Siloam." 6 words, a specific instruction, a specific place. A man who could not see, walking through the streets of Jerusalem to a pool he had probably been to many times before, because this pool was one of the most important public spaces in the city. He washes, he returns seeing. And for 2,000 years, people have been trying to find exactly where that pool was. It turns out it was hiding in plain sight. Before we find the pool, we need to go back 700 years before Jesus to a king named Hezekiah and a crisis that was about to kill his entire city. It is the late 8th century BC. The Assyrian Empire, led by Sennacherib, is destroying everything in its path across the ancient Near East. Jerusalem is next. Hezekiah knows it. His problem? Jerusalem's water supply, the Gihon Spring, sits outside the city walls, in the Kidron Valley. The moment an Assyrian army surrounds the city and controls that spring, Jerusalem dies of thirst. No siege required, just patience. Hezekiah's solution was audacious. He commissioned workers to cut a tunnel through solid limestone, 533 meters of it beneath the city, redirecting the spring's flow from outside the walls to a reservoir inside them. 2 teams worked from opposite ends simultaneously, with no modern surveying equipment, just plumb lines, experience, and extraordinary skill. They met in the middle. The water flowed. Jerusalem survived Sennacherib's siege of 701 BC. The tunnel is real. It still flows. You can walk through it today. And in 1880, a boy wading in the water found an inscription carved into the tunnel wall near the junction point. 6 lines of ancient Hebrew describing the moment the 2 teams heard each other's voices through the rock and broke through. That inscription, called the Siloam inscription, is now in the Istanbul Archaeological Museum. The Bible verse about it, 2 Kings 20:20, says Hezekiah made the pool and the conduit and brought water into the city. The tunnel and the inscription confirm it precisely. The pool at the end of that tunnel is the Pool of Siloam. By the 1st century, by the time of Jesus, the Pool of Siloam had transformed from a military asset into something much more. Jerusalem, during festival season, was one of the crowded places on earth. Pilgrims poured in from across the Jewish world for Passover, Shavuot, and Sukkot. Josephus says the numbers were staggering. And before any pilgrim could ascend to the temple to worship, Jewish law required ritual immersion, full immersion in living water. A small private mikveh could not handle tens of thousands of people. The Pool of Siloam, large, public, continuously fed by Hezekiah's living spring water, was the solution. It sat at the southern end of the city, near the main approach route from the Judean hills. Pilgrims arrived, immersed in the pool, and then walked the stepped processional street northward up toward the Temple Mount. Crowds, pilgrims, priests, merchants, this was not a quiet spot. When you understand this, John 9 suddenly opens up. When Jesus tells the blind man to go and wash in the Pool of Siloam, he is not sending him to a private corner. He is sending him into the most publicly visible, most heavily trafficked religious space in first-century Jerusalem. Whatever was about to happen would have witnesses, hundreds of them. After the Romans destroyed Jerusalem in 70 AD and rebuilt it as a Roman city, the geography of the old city became harder to read. When Byzantine Christian pilgrims began arriving in the 4th and 5th centuries to identify the holy sites, they found a pool fed by Hezekiah's tunnel at the southern end of the city. A church was built beside it. It was identified as the Pool of Siloam. Pilgrims came. The tradition solidified. The problem was that the pool they were visiting was a later, smaller Byzantine collecting basin built over the channel outlet, but not the original first-century pool. It was in roughly the right area. It was connected to the right water source, but it was not the pool Jesus sent the blind man to. Nobody knew that because the real pool was buried under meters of accumulated silt and soil just a short distance away. For 15 centuries, nobody had reason to look, until a pipe broke. In the summer of 2004, a Jerusalem municipality maintenance team arrived in a walled garden area in the city of David to repair a sewage pipe. Routine job. Their shovels broke through into stone, ancient stone, wide, flat carved steps descending into a plastered basin. The IRA's authority was called immediately. Archaeologists Ronnie Reich of the University of Haifa and Eli Shukran took over. What they uncovered over the following months was breathtaking. A massive stepped pool, approximately 50 meters long, with 3 broad tiers of stone steps descending to the water surface. The steps were divided by landings, flat platforms between tiers, designed so that people descending on one side in a state of ritual impurity would not cross paths with people ascending on the other in a state of purity. This is the classic mikveh design, scaled up for an entire city's population. Dating came from 2 sources: coins embedded in the original plaster, Hasmonean, late 2nd to early 1st century BC, coins in the layer that filled and sealed the pool, First Jewish Revolt, 66 to 70 AD. The pool was in active use precisely in the Second Temple period, exactly the world of John's Gospel. Reich and Shukran published their findings in the Israel Exploration Journal. The identification as the first-century Pool of Siloam has been accepted by the overwhelming majority of scholars working in Jerusalem archaeology. John 9:7 is worth reading again with fresh eyes. Jesus says, "Go, wash in the Pool of Siloam," which means sent. John tells us the name means sent. Some readers have read this as a theological hint, the pool of the one who was sent. But in Hebrew, the root shlh also describes a water channel, water that is sent or directed from one place to another. The Pool of Siloam was literally named after the fact that its water was sent through a tunnel from the Gihon spring. The name is hydraulic. John's aside is accurate, specific, and reflects real knowledge of the pool's etymology. One can't write a story that wasn't true by including that kind of accurate etymological detail. You include that detail because you know what you are talking about. Archaeologists have also excavated the ancient stepped street that led from the Pool of Siloam northward toward the Temple Mount, a broad paved processional route with large limestone slabs, market stalls, drainage channels, and alcoves cut along its sides. Sections of this street are open to visitors today. Pilgrims ascending to the temple used this road every festival season. The healed man in John 9 was brought before the Pharisees for questioning multiple times because neither his neighbors nor the religious authorities could believe he was the same person who had been blind. The setting of a large, very public pool connected to the main temple pilgrimage route explains the social dynamics perfectly. The miracle happened in the middle of a crowd, in the very middle of the city's spiritual traffic, not in a quiet corner, but in the very place where everyone could see him. A broken sewage pipe, 2 archaeologists, a pool that had been waiting under the soil for 2,000 years. The Pool of Siloam is not a footnote. It is one of the most important public spaces in 1st century Jerusalem. And once you know what it was, John 9 takes on a new dimension entirely. The blind man did not wash in a corner. He washed where the whole city could see him. And that, of course, was exactly the point. Go and read John 9 tonight. It will read differently now.
Next episode, we go to the eastern shore of the Dead Sea, where a 2021 peer-reviewed paper in Nature described what may be the most dramatic single event in the entire Old Testament. And the evidence is not mythology. It is melted pottery and vitrified bricks.